Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to the Rotary Club of York, where our mission is to improve life in the city of York by connecting our club's diverse community leaders through fellowship, action, and service. I'm your president, Wilda Ream. And as you know, we start off our meetings by reciting the four-way test. Please join me. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Today, our opening song, America the Beautiful, and the Pledge will be led by Steve Feldman, followed by the invocation by Eric Chase and visitor introductions by Sonam Ruitt.
Rotarians and guests, please join me. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rotarians and guests, will you prepare yourself in the way you're most accustomed to prayer? Let us pray. God, our Creator, today we pray that we may receive your blessing because we are committed to serving our York City, our community, and to serve humankind throughout the world. May each of us in our daily lives come to know the joy of caring and sharing our many blessings with others. May our four-way test of truth and fairness and friendship and mutual benefit be our guide each and every day. We ask for blessings on our speaker as he shares his insight as to why York and why not York, and for various developments and some perspectives that are outside the bubble of commercial real estate development. We thank you for this meal, the hands that have prepared and serve it. May we nourish our bodies and spirit to better serve our community. And we pray this all in the many names we call you. Amen.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm pleased to have the honor of introducing our guest for today's meeting. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President Wilda has welcomed you. Visiting Rotarian Fred Pluck from the Lancaster Club. Constant Craig Mason, guest of Gina Spangler. John Birkland, guest of our speaker. Zachary Usherman, guest of Mike Usherman. Lisa Gallagher, guest of Natalie Gunderson. Bob Bentley, guest of Natalie Gunderson. Dan Belk, guest of Brian Caden. Donnie Sanders, Greg of Dan May. Aaron Repman, guest of Dan May. Zach Erdman, guest of Chad Myers. Morgan Rexroth Deller, guest of Joe Stein.
Guests, we're so glad to have you here with us today. Whether this is your first visit or you're back again, it's always a pleasure to have new faces and familiar faces in the room. So if what you see here today resonates with you, we'd love to have you consider becoming part of our Rotary family. Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors. You may be seated. And now for some announcements. The Membership Recruitment Committee meets today at 1:30 downstairs in the Mixed Grill. The Youth Enrichment Committee meets tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on Zoom. The Youth Exchange Committee also meets tomorrow at noon on Teams. The Student Education Committee will meet on February 24th at 8 o'clock on Zoom. And the Service Project Development Committee will meet on February 24th at noon at Prince Street Cafe in person. So now I invite Bill Hunter, Chair of the Membership Engagement Committee, to the podium.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, President Wilda. The Membership Engagement Committee has been very busy. We're laying out our calendar for the next few months. We're trying to stick to our committee action plan. So those strategies are developing new and professional network opportunities and prioritizing first-year experience for our new members. So we've done some focus groups. We've done some surveys. We asked and you spoke, and we have kind of changed our direction to pursue these more networking, learning about other organizations. We had some other social activities and things planned, but we are pivoting right now, and we're going to go with this strategy moving forward. You can go to the next slide. So right now, what we're working on is Rotary Biz Tours. So what we're doing is we're coordinating business and organizational tours with our networking, facilitated networking activities. We're going to make it really easy for you to register for these events. As of 12/10, your inbox should have an email. You can go ahead and take a look at that now on your phone, but your inbox should have an email from the club, and all these activities are listed there, so you can easily hit RSVP and get registered for these events. As you can see, we've got them outlined for quite a few months here. The first one is coming up very soon. At March 5th, we're going to go to Shipley. We're going to see their operations center. So again, we're going to do a tour of a facility and then facilitated networking. It's going to be about a 2-hour event. There's going to be some drinks and food and networking. On May 14th, we're going to do the Shine Music Foundation, helping youth in music education. So that'll be May 14th. And then all the way out to June, we're going to do the Appel Center. So that's all coming up. Also, if you do look at your tables, there's a QR code. We can go to the next slide. It's been on the screen as well, but again, we're making it easy. You can just take out your phone, take a snapshot of that QR code, make sure you're not on the club Wi-Fi, otherwise it won't work. But you can go ahead and register for that very easily. And actually, I did just receive an email that QR code is working. Ben Shipley has registered since he's been here, so good move. Good move. So, but yeah, go ahead and please take a look at that and get registered for those events. We're looking forward to having you. And one more slide. We're also, like I said, we're focusing on our newer members. So we have a happy hour that we're scheduling for April 16th. That's going to be at Grand Falloons. We're going to have our own room, and that's going to be an invitation being sent out to our newer members. So looking forward to all of these networking activities and everybody participating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you to the Membership Engagement Committee for all of your hard work in putting these opportunities together for our members. And thank you to our members for providing valuable feedback and showing up for these new events that are being planned. And now I invite Debbie Ashway, Chair of Student Education, for an important reminder about scholarships.
Education is expensive, and our Rotary Club, with the help of the Student Education Committee, can help. We have $54,000 available to give in a variety of scholarships. Scholarships are available for York City High School seniors up to $10,000. Adult learners returning to school, high academic achievers, majors in nursing at York College, engineering, agriculture, music, equine studies, and healthcare. The details of the scholarships are on our weekly email that you receive. Usually at the top is the speaker and the lunch menu, but if you keep on scrolling to the bottom, you'll see the criteria for all of the scholarships. You can also find the criteria on our website. It's always been challenging to find applications for our Adult Learner Scholarship. The criteria for our non-traditional adult learners who do not enter post-secondary education immediately following high school, you have to be at least 26 years old or a veteran of 24 years or older. You attend accredited institution or program at least part-time during the year, or you're pursuing your first bachelor's or associate's degree, trade or technical school, or personal or professional certification program, and you've been a resident of York County for 3 years. And finally, adhering to our strategic plan, there's a preference for the residents of York City. We could really use your help to get the word out for these scholarships, and the deadline is March 15th.
All right, thank you so much, Debbie. And now Brian Grimm, Chair of Youth Literacy, has another exciting opportunity for us.
Thank you, President Wilda. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing today? All right, I'll allow it. I'm coming in today as the chair of our wonderful youth literacy committee. Our mission is simple and meaningful. We raise awareness and promote literacy through programs that benefit children in New York City. Our 25-26 Rotary year goals were meaningful. We set really 3 goals out as a committee. One was to hold our initial event. If you recall, we had that back in September on the 30th. We set out to provide literacy materials to more than 700 children in New York City. These are children of early childhood education programs in the city, and also programs that serve York City children. What we accomplished is we were able to rally 52 Rotarians, 52 volunteers to come out and read to these children. We visited 12 locations and we served 25 classrooms. Just wanted to pause there and thank everyone who was a part of that wonderful day on September 30th. Thank you for showing up. Yes. Another goal of our committee is for each one of our committee members to serve 1 hour, volunteer hour, to read to children throughout the city. So that's another commitment that we have as a committee. And then our last one, and finally, was Rotary Reads was so successful, we thought, well, maybe we should do this twice a year. So exciting to report, we are starting a Rotary Reads 2 program, trademark pending. It'll be happening on March 18th. Multiple York City elementary schools, I believe it's first grade that we'll be reading to, taking place from 8:30 to 10:30. Don't worry, there's still plenty of time for you to get to the Rotary meeting on Wednesday. Don't use that as an excuse to not come here, all right? The event is in collaboration with the York County Agricultural Society and our good friend and fellow Rotarian, Pat Ball. So thank you to him for thinking of us through this process. This is a multifaceted effort. We want to introduce York City elementary students to the importance of York County's agricultural industry, while also encouraging reading, learning, and hands-on engagement. Each classroom will receive a book that was donated by the York County Agricultural Society. We're grateful for them. And then we will read to them as Rotarians, and then we will also provide a short 20-minute activity to, again, highlight the importance of agriculture in our community. It's really a win-win for the students, for our volunteers, and for our club. Now, we do need your help. We need volunteers to read and help lead these activities in the classroom. Our goal is to have 2 volunteers per classroom, 42-ish classrooms we have, and we'll double up assignments if need be. So please volunteer. We learned some lessons from Rotary Reads 1 that we're going to be implementing for Rotary Reads 2 to make the experience as smooth and impactful for everyone as we possibly can. So we're really excited. And then lastly, just our call to action is the easy part, right? We need you to show up. We're on the app, sign in, go to all events and click on Rotary Reads. But you'll be hearing more from us in the coming weeks as we push towards March. But I'll just say this, sign up. I think if you talk to anybody who went to the first one, it's meaningful and you feel good. It'll make your day, it'll make your week, it'll make your month to hang out with these kids and to provide an activity with them. Thank you for your time. The book is Cows Can Moo, Can You?
Thank you, Brian. And as Brian said, if you participated in the first Rotary Reads, and as I mentioned last year as we were recruiting, if you want to feel good about yourself, if you're tired of people taking advantage of you and just feeling people just take, go talk to little kids, read a book to little kids. You will make their day. You will be their hero for the day. You will feel so loved and appreciated. They'll want hugs, high fives. They'll want to tell you about all the things. It really is. If you just need a pick me up, that is a great way to do that. And you'll be a good Rotarian as well. So at this time, I invite Jack Dyson up to introduce our speaker for today.
And again, a good afternoon. I've had the privilege of knowing Kevin Hodge for a number of years. I wasn't sure, so I asked him how long. He gave me a date, and I realized we've known each other for 2 millennia. So thank you for whoever laughed. So Kevin grew up in northwestern PA, where he went to college, and he worked for a couple of years in Cleveland. Then he went to Boston U and graduated with his master's degree. Came down here, started working with Historic York, where he worked for 2 years as a preservation specialist. So then he went to the York County Economic Development Corporation, now known as YCEA. He did that for 7 years. I didn't ask him this. What made you go from there to Rock Real Estate, commercial real estate? But he's been doing that for 23 years. So almost the full century. So, and so he's had a 30-year total in commercial real estate. This was amazing to me. Kevin has been involved in the development of 5.7 million square feet of industrial properties throughout York County. So on a personal note, again, I've known Kevin since about 1994. We go to church together at Living Word Community Church. But on a personal note, Kevin's mom, aging mom, has some physical, some mental issues. And pretty much every Sunday, he brings her to church and sits with her. You can see his love, his care, his service, his compassion for his mother. And if that's any reflection on the way he does business, that says a huge amount about this man of integrity. So, fellow Rotarians, let's welcome Kevin Hodge.
Well, that was a little bit different, unexpected. Thanks, Jack. And thank you, Wilda. Wilda and I were just talking actually at the table, not sure if we actually overlapped at York County Economic Development at the time versus now YCEA or not. But it is what it is. Today, what I'm going to try and do is put your seatbelts on. I'm going to try and talk quick with the intention of giving you time for as many questions as possible. Make sure I can turn this on so I can actually forward the slides. Jack kind of gave a little bit of background on myself and yeah, the development. And one of the things I really tend to look at is it's really helping to create thousands of jobs. Almost all those 5.7 million square feet have been new companies to the community, which has translated to jobs, employment, insurance, healthcare, and things like that. So what we're going to talk about today is why or why not York? Because that's kind of a little bit of a both on those things. You know, what's the data? We look at a lot of data. You're going to see some slides up here that you're not going to be able to read everything. That's not the intention for you to read it. It's really kind of a high point trying to catch on it. What are things in the past tell us, you know, why is York is what York is? And just kind of where are the trends and what are we missing? So, all right. Technology works. A little bit about Rock, just for background. We're just celebrating our 25th year actually this year, but give you an idea, since 2000, you know, 2,700 leases we've done, about 18 million square feet, 446 sale transactions, about 347 million. So big presence in the community. And I think from that and what you're going to see in some forwarding slides is our depth in the market as far as understanding, you know, what is York? Why is it doing what it's doing? And I'm going to try and provide as much of the background and context as I can with that. Questions we get, first one I'm going to answer right here, and then just the others are going to kind of get copied or taken care of as I go through the presentation. Why not house the homeless in these empty buildings? We hear that a lot. I've got somebody who's been asking me for years, like, why aren't we doing something with the old Giant, you know, up in near West Manchester Town Center and such? There's a lot of reasons, and some of it's the types of owners that they are, some of it's the zoning, some of it's the code, some of it's the footprint of the building and how it works for dividing up. But there's reasons for a lot of that stuff. Not say that that's not an important thing, and you're going to see a little bit later how people are taking buildings and turning them into residential that they weren't before. But some other things, why is our favorite restaurants closing? Another warehouse, really? Why can't we get Whole Foods or Trader Joe's? Right? Exactly. I'll tell you that bad news later. And why can't they put the data center somewhere else? Why is it here? So that's kind of where we are. Now I'm going to move into the part that I didn't warn people about. You're going to get a test. You're actually going to get 3. Put in your head, how many square feet of office do you think we have in York County? And what kind of vacancy rate do you think we have? All right, got an idea in your head? All right, this is the page. Basically, ignore everything in the middle. That's just a screenshot of our data system. But right there is 13.5 million square feet we have in the county, and we've got 3.25% vacancy. But if you look at the bottom, my guess is you all thought a whole lot larger than that as far as the vacancy, because if you read the national news, that's, they have a lot higher. If you see at the bottom, according to Colliers and Cushwake, who are 2 companies that are, global real estate firms, not rock, you're looking at 18 to 20% vacancy. So, well, why is that? Why York, and why are we different from the national market? First of all, the office market in York is for people who need to be in York. We are not an office market. We're a market for people who say, hey, I need to serve the local community. Let's be honest, Google, whoever, iPhone, and forgetting the stupid company's name. They aren't coming to York saying, I want to have a headquarters here. Who we have are the companies that have either grown here, like an OSS, serving the community, or somebody like a Penn State Health, who's coming in to serve the community. Those are the kind of differences that we have. The other things that we have are the companies that were grown here. For examples of that would be, for instance, I'm going to try and pull in some old names. Got to use somehow my preservation degree in history. Mezzo, who used to be Spadala, used to be Coppers, used to be Alice Chalmers, depending upon how many 100 years you want to go back. But that's a company that was born and raised and grown here, that has since stayed here, but, their purpose for being here grew locally. Another good one would be St. Onge. I mean, it's a global high-end engineering firm, specialty in their world, known globally for what they do, but they were born and bred here. So that's why they're here. An example of that we've lost is the Bonton. We all knew the Bonton. I'm old enough and I've been in York long enough for when the Bonton was here. That's where I bought my furniture. But unfortunately they've left, and the 90,000 square foot office that they have, we don't even consider a part of the market because it's so unleasable, given that it's on the 2nd floor with deed restrictions at the back of a shopping center and things like that. So why not York? Why aren't we an office market? Really, I think that comes down to a lack of a sufficient supply of the labor force. Number one, office market people tend to look for a very higher density population area, but they're also looking for much more in the college graduate and professional services that is not typically what we've got in York. The other thing that they do is they look for amenities, and amenities that the professional workforce is going to look for. I'll give you an example of a case that we had back in my York County Economic Alliance era. There was a company called PH&H. If you ever saw going down to Hunt Valley on the left-hand side, driving down 83, there used to be an office building there that had the letters PH&H on it. That was a company that honestly, the parent company, Sendent out of New York City, looked to have them jump the border and come up here. But the leadership and the market folks said, no, we're not going to come. Even though we met them all their targets that they were looking for to come to the community, but they just said the amenities and features and things that we're looking for aren't there. And for the executive's decision, I like the horse country house where I'm living. I don't want to commute further. That's the other thing that we do in our world, is the little secret. If we're ever working with a client, we find out where the decision maker lives. Unfortunately, the majority of the time, it's going to focus on that. So that's kind of there. All right, so now let's move on to retail. How many square feet do you think we have? And how much vacancy do you think we have? You see at the top, we got about 27 million square feet and about 4.25% interest or vacancy rate. But if you look at the national down at the bottom of the slide, we're right about the national average, which makes sense. You know, we're not like with office, we're not an office market, but retail, you're serving the customer base, you're in the community. So that's really what you've got. So it's not unusual that we've got that. But let's get into the why not York. One of the things that they look for as a retailer is they're going to look at the actual demographics. They're not going to look for the pie in the sky or what you learned. This is where I'm going to make you unhappy about Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's higher likelihood than Whole Foods. But the demographics that they look for and the level of college educated, we just don't have. So they're not going to look to come here, or at least not initially. Another thing that you'll run into is, okay, let's staying in the food realm, Wegmans. Why don't we have a Wegmans? Wegman draws for 30 miles. There's one in Hunt Valley, there's one in Mechanicsburg, and there's one in Lancaster. We are cannibalized. So we're covered in their eyes as far as serving that market. You can't build a grocery store the size of a Lowe's and expect it to serve a neighborhood. It has to serve a larger area. Another constraint that we face is land. I can tell you, John can attest to this, Costco wants to be here. Find us a 18-acre site, John, I think is what they want, that's in a good retail location, and Costco will come here. We can't do it. We've tried. John has tried. He got very close on a site to try and pull it together in assembling land, but that is a problem that is sometimes a constraint. The other thing is just to talk about where I talked a little bit at the top of it in the retail realm is, you know, a lower priority market. You know, retailers are going to look for the lowest hanging fruit and penetrate those markets first before they get to the secondary thing. A little, probably not well-known secret is when Starbucks originally came to York County to build their roasting facility, which handled everything east of the Mississippi River and the rest of Europe. When they came here 35 years ago, probably, or some close to that, they actually were required to put a Starbucks in York. That one over by the Lowe's in the east end of town was there because they were made to put it there. Starbucks didn't necessarily want one because they didn't see us as the demographic for a Starbucks at the time. But you know, it was more of a coercion. Hey, if you're going to come here, you got to at least have a location. So they did that. So let's talk about a different part of retail, which is restaurants. So back to that question, you know, why is my favorite, you know, restaurants, why are my favorite restaurants closing? Think about 30 years ago and the type of food that you got, you know, at a restaurant, fast food, you know, and those kind of things, the quality of a McDonald's and a Denny's, you know, and those kind of things versus the quality that you can get in fast casual food now. The supply chains have gotten so much more sophisticated that they're getting things here. People are putting together more prepackaged flavorings and things like that. They're allowing that stuff to happen. So what you've got is the quality of the fast casual and the chain oriented is going up while their pricing is going down. So a local folk are really feeling that compression issue. It's harder to compete because they can't compete as much on price and they're losing their competitive advantage of their specialty recipes or whatever. And that's kind of the example I think of that. I mean, for breakfast this morning, I had blackberries and yogurt. Okay, that's blackberries, you know, when I was a kid, you couldn't get blackberries in February. I mean, those kind of things, just so much of that world has changed that allows for things that didn't happen. So that's really, I think, affecting them. The other analogy that I throw to it on a personal level is you had grandma's special recipe for fast fudge, which was my grandmother's recipe. It's all on all recipes now. I mean, the access to the knowledge isn't, so you no longer are things secret recipes. I mean, if you want to look up, you know, whatever, you know, who was it, Mrs. Fields cookies or whatever. I mean, back in the day when that was a special thing 20 some years ago, 30 years ago, you know, that recipe's out there. So anybody can do it to a certain extent. So that's where things are on that. All right, last one. And this one's kind of more my fun and also my world. I'm a hammer, I'm an industrial guy, so everything's a nail. So I'm going to focus a little more on industrial, but I also think that that's the sector that's changed the most in York and is going to continue to change and it's probably going to have interest. What do you think our total square footage are and what's our vacancy? Because everybody says, why are they building all these warehouses? We have 93.5 million square feet in the county. All right. And we're only at 3.3% vacancy. And to be honest with you, if you look at that little circle graph on the right-hand side, that green that is, you know, probably 70% of that is the Class A industrial buildings, and that's a couple of the big boys. You know, when you have a 700,000 square foot building go vacant or be built and go online but not be occupied, that has nearly a percentage increase in our vacancy factor. When I started doing some, speaking to the county and to the municipalities, we, probably a year and a half ago, we were at like 1.7%. So we've got a small of an uptick on that, but that's, how we're seeing things change. But the class of the vacancy is really at Class A is the higher ceiling ESFR sprinkler, which is a special sprinkler system and such in the larger footprint buildings. Can't really see it, but the next right below their top industrial vacancies, that lays out some of those larger spaces. One of the other things that we learned with COVID is, we found out when COVID hit that lean manufacturing got too lean. We really didn't have any redundancy. We didn't have any buffer in it. Well, think about, okay, if we're thinking we need to build a little more inventory to handle disruptions and things like that, a 5% increase in our industrial base in York County is 4.6 million square feet. So just to unlean ourselves just a little bit would add 4.6 million square feet into our market. So it gives you a sense on that. Another thing that was interesting, in 2025, 280 million square feet of industrial buildings were added in the country. And we're about 1 million square feet of that, which actually I think was a little bit lower. I never did get the chance to pull the statistics to see in the last few years, some buildings that have come online that would have affected that, because like the Amazon warehouse out in west end of town in Jackson Township, I did that deal. It was 1 million square footer. So just that building going online, that was probably in 2024. That one would have been 1 million square feet. But that, depending upon how you want to play with the statistics, is 2.5 times the per capita square footage of industrial than nationwide average. Or if you want to play with the statistics really high, it's 9 times more than the average county across the country as far as our industrial. So we are an industrial market, and industrial and warehousing. So let's go into the way back machine. Back years ago, you had S. Morgan Smith during the Industrial Revolution came to York and founded major companies here. York, we talk about we're a colonial capital, where the Articles of Confederation were adopted here and that kind of stuff. I don't mean to dismiss that, but when you look at York and York City, we're an Industrial Revolution era city. It was built about 1870 to 1910. That's when York was really built, when it came from just being a small town community. So that's really getting into the aspects of this. But I mean, S. Morgan Smith, he founded what's now Voith, York Manufacturing, Johnson Controls, and PCC. Those are all homegrown companies that have built a large legacy in manufacturing. And whenever you have clusters of things like that, it builds upon itself. Silicon Valley is the example, in San Francisco and all that. It feeds upon itself and becomes a nexus for that kind of development. And ours is industrial. All right. Other changes that have happened. This is showing a little bit of why, when I came to York or started dealing with it, commercial development in York 30 years ago, what was important were highways, proximity to customers. So you see this map, and it's not real clear, but that outline, the line, the yellow or the white dashed line, and you see the statistics, 30% of the United States population and 50% of Canada's is within that 500-mile radius. That's what companies look for. One of the things I learned when I first came to York County Economic Development is that if you ran a statistical model of the optimal place to serve the northeastern part of the United States, the center point was Spring Grove. And then from there, okay, let's look logically. We're not going to go to Spring Grove. No offense to Spring Grove to anybody here, but we need to be near a highway. And so that's where they say, okay, the 81 corridor is really what became the place to be. 83 was really the corridor of the specialty projects, where it's not a speculative project that just some developers just looking to build a building. It's the Starbucks of this world. It's the ES3, the food warehouse that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Those types of users that were coming here needing to have a specific widget or a freezer building. You have one up in Brickyard Industrial Park, Rick Poole's project, where you had those kind of specialty buildings. Okay, so now what do people look at? They look at all those things. But the other major thing and why I would say Northern York County's gotten onto the radar screen is you all in your businesses know labor force is a problem. So, you know, it's great to have a 1,000,000 square foot warehouse in Shippensburg. No offense to Shippensburg either. But if you need 1,000 people to staff it, where are you getting those people? And so you will see in a lot of real estate agents' marketing materials for warehouses and manufacturing is proximity to the labor force. And we are between York and Harrisburg. Because you're not, let's be honest also, you're not going to move necessarily for a warehousing job, but you're going to, if you have one, if the people who need it will have that. So what are other emerging things? And this is where it might get into a little bit of fun. Infrastructure. There's a graphic we got put together. It's a little bit of combination. It's a little bit muddy, but basically where you see the yellowish to red lines, those are your major electric corridors in the county. And what you see as far as obviously the Susquehanna River for water, and then those bluish dashed lines that you see, those are high pressure gas transmission lines. We're not talking a gas line, we're talking a high pressure gas line. 25 years ago, and this is where I want to get into the AI and data center stuff. I think this is very much rhyming what I experienced 25 years ago when I was with York County Economic Development. If people remember the gas-fired power plant craze, where all of a sudden we're looking at building a lot of gas-fired power plants, what they would look at is those infrastructure because they need those three inputs. They need electric corridor access, they need gas, and they needed water for cooling. We landed one of those projects in southeastern York County in Peach Bottom Township. I landed that project there. But what people don't really know is there were 2 other sites under contract for those in the county as well. I had them under contract to do that. And what I think we're seeing right now is the same situation in the data centers. Everybody's throwing options at things. They're promising the world in hopes that they will land that golden ticket of actually pulling a project off. But otherwise, it's just cost of doing business. And if you have to write off some money or whatever for tying up a site and going through some development and entitlements. But what are they going to look at? They're going to look at the electric corridors. They're going to look at the water, maybe gas if they're going to look at on-site power generation. But they're going to look at the fiber infrastructure. And if you see that bluish purple line going across the county and then the green line coming up from the south up the rail trail, those are our more fiber corridors to look at. So that's what they're going to need to tie into. That's something I didn't mention. On gas-fired power plants, the rule of thumb 25 years ago was extending any of those was $1 million a mile. So obviously those are the things they're going to look at. And again, the gas-fired power plant that landed was right in the southeastern part of the county, the confluence of those 3 features. So those are the things that we really need to understand. That's why we're getting this attention for the data centers, besides just everybody's obsessing on data centers, but is the reason why we have some likelihood. But the cautionary tale that I would say is don't fall in love or think that we're going to get 10 of these. We're not going to get 10 of these. You know, everybody's racing towards it to hopefully get over the finish line. You know, will we get more than one? We'll see. We'll probably get one, you know, as a minimum. So that's some stuff to understand. All right, so now let's think forward and rethinking a few things. This is kind of a funny slide I like to show. I've used some of this before. We need to really acknowledge the fact that the county is changing. It's not a rural, semi-rural, agricultural, you know, smaller town environment. We need to rethink density. Buildings going higher lot coverage of buildings. Years ago in an industrial building, they didn't worry about the lot coverage because you've got stormwater management that you had to take care of and all those kind of things. And Joe, you can attest to the fact that land's so expensive now, they put it underground. They pipe it, you know, under parking lots. So let's not just do it because the way we've always done it. Those 2 images at the top are separated by about 250 years, but that's the same place in Manhattan. Couldn't get a photograph from 250 years ago, so I had to go with an illustration showing you like that. But that's the same place in downtown Manhattan. You know, so we're not going to become that, but that's illustrating the fact their world changed, and it changed a lot. Our world is going to change. It's just a matter of how it's going to change. But giving you an example, the bottom left-hand corner, that's ES3. The aerial photograph doesn't quite give you the sense of that, but that's the big building that you see up on 83 that's 110 feet tall. That little office appendage that you see on the front is a single-story office. It's 110 feet tall. But if you didn't think about density and rethinking density and allowing for something to go that high, the footprint of that building would be 4 times as large if it was a 25 to 30 foot ceiling building. So think about that. They're getting the same amount of product and the same amount of amenities and benefits and taxes out of less land, less expansion of infrastructure, less further away. People have probably read in the paper about the Dover. In fact, Dover Township, I think, just gave preliminary approval for their land development plan for 1.8 million square feet in 2 buildings. And people ask, why in the world are they building that in Dover? I'll tell you why they're building it in Dover. Because we can't get a site closer to 83. No developer wants to be that far away. No user wants to be that far away. But when you need it, and you go to where you can find it. But if we look at finding ways to make things more dense and rethinking those things, it's going to help us. The right-hand side is a little bit of a different picture. Curious if people recognize what that is. That's the new apartment building being built in downtown on Beaver Street, Heritage Crossing. And it's going to have 139 apartments plus a floor of commercial. If you figure out by the acreage of that and looked at a standard city lot, you would be looking at 45 to maybe 70 if they were 2 units, worth of housing that they're now going to have 139 on-site parking and commercial space. So those are the things that we need to acknowledge and look at. It's like, where are the places that this should happen, but we can't be NIMBY and not expect anything to change, especially when you get people from northwestern Pennsylvania moving into the community. So, all right, next one is rethinking purpose. There are functionally obsolete buildings. If people don't know this, these are the Franklin Street projects that Jordan Ilias has done down. I think he spoke here a bit back, except with some other stuff. Those 2 industrial buildings used to be an employment hub for Red Lion. They were functionally obsolete. They no longer made sense as an employment hub for Red Lion. But that doesn't mean that they can't add value. Now, they're a living and a community hub. I mean, if you look at what he's done there, they've got nearly 200 apartments, a brew pub, a coffee shop, the Franklin Social, which is basically the food court that's got 12 food vendors in it. If you haven't been there yet, go. It's really, really neat. Good food, lots of different choices. They've got a golf simulator and they've got a hair salon, all in that complex of 2 buildings. And you look at now how that is really changing Red Lion and creating a hub. And he's gotten awards for this from the Pennsylvania Downtown Center for what he's done there. And it's spectacular. And he's continuing to go. He's working on the Zarfos building for those of us who bought furniture at Zarfos years ago. He's in renovation of that right now into more apartments and retail in the front. But that's when we need to start thinking about rethinking the purposes of things. And some of these buildings where you sit there and say, oh, it was industrial, I don't want to lose the industrial. This is a phenomenal asset to the community. All right. Now, I guess the other thing to leave you on is rethinking the American dream. And this is a little bit out of the box and different, but what I want you to think about is the American dream in real estate. I mean, we all grew up knowing the American dream is owning a house, typically with a white picket fence and whatever. But it's more than owning a house. York County is 580,000 acres, but York County isn't 580,000 acres. York County is 340,000 people. The county is the people. The acreage, the land, the industrial, the buildings, the houses, those are all tools and pieces of it. But we need to think about, what this all means. I mean, people say, why are we building more warehouses? What are these jobs? We need to think about, and I love the fact with your York Rotary being focused on the city and the people, and the city is the residents of the city. And it's very easy to overlook those people in the community who maybe didn't get privileged like I did with, being born a couple of rungs up on a ladder for opportunity wise. And where can these be? I mean, these folks can give the people a chance for things. Amazon, to give some examples, just because I've heard Maura with Amazon do some talking about it. I mean, their wages are about $17 to $20 an hour in their warehouses, depending upon the roles and things like that. but they come with 401k and medical and vacation and all those things, flexibility of schedule, educational amenities. The other thing that people don't realize is a lot of these facilities are now air conditioned for quality of life. So these things can be a ladder of opportunity for people, the people of York County, who maybe don't necessarily have those opportunities that some of us have had or have forgotten the opportunities that we've had. The other thing that a lot of these places offer is flexibility of schedule, because they're 24/7 operations. So you may have a young couple, who have a child or two, and they need, as far as balancing their work schedules and childcare or whatever, or a student who's going to college at York College or whatever, not Penn State York shortly. Sorry, I'm irreverent. But you have those opportunities that they can be working on their education. Amazon or whoever can be picking up some of that tab while bettering themselves. And Amazon, for instance, I don't believe has any restriction that you need to stay for so long. You could literally get your education through them and then leave. That's just the way their attitude is on things. And don't mean this to be an advertisement for Amazon, although they're probably in 2.5 million square feet of York County and probably a couple thousand jobs. So they are a real impact. And I'll just kind of, I guess, leave you with, on that aspect. I think we know, where people start out isn't where they finish. There's a prominent individual in the community who started out as a bank teller and left as the bank president. Or a man who had to be loaned money to buy grass seed for his landscaping business and then turned it into a couple $100,000 a year industrial company. Those are the opportunities that people have, and we need to find ways to give them those opportunities. And I like to think that some of what we do in the commercial realm is to provide some of those opportunities. And I think we need to continue to adapt and know that changes happen. It's not going to be the way it always was. That's just life, and we have to understand those, but we have to look at how it's working for other people. With that, questions? Yes. I think, Reed, did you put one more slide on it, or was that it? There we go. What do you got?
I have a very dumb question. That was a great presentation, by the way. I learned a lot. My dumb question is this. Microsoft contracted with the owners of 3 Mile Island to purchase bulk 850 megawatts. And they're building, or they want to build, a transmission line down to their Virginia data center. Had they come to you and bought property on the island or on York County or in Lancaster County, they could easily have constructed a data center. I hear there's one going into Lancaster, which would have eliminated the consternation of building a transmission line at $1 million a mile. Also, they would have had access to the water cooling. So can you explain to me why you've not sold them a property to do that in Lancaster or York County?
I don't know Microsoft specific. I do know that 3 Mile Island somewhat, because actually we had their training facility under contract or for sale, which was really a fun tour to take people on, because the closing room that we showed them was the simulator room. So everybody was like, oh, this is cool. But some of it is, Microsoft probably is pushing themselves from a business perspective of going green and going as quickly as possible to get it there. And obviously they've got some facilities currently down in Reston area. I'll be curious to see them, how quickly they can get that going. Is Microsoft in the market looking? Possibly they are. So much of this is people who are speculatively tying things up who will then flip it to those kind of parties. But I believe the data center that's being proposed in Peach Bottom Township is next to the gas power plant that I worked on. So, and what they're doing is they're grabbing the potential demand, because I think that's what we're all questioning, how's this going to work with our electric bills and those kind of things? Because it is a real concern. It is a real question. I think it's fantastic that, Microsoft stepping in and is bringing a plant back online that should have never gone offline in the first place. Now, this is going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to say 6 months before that, or 6 months after they announced they were closing that, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania announced that they were going to be buying green energy and it was going to be a bunch of whole solar farms and things like that, when all they could have done was bought the capacity of 3 Mile Island and kept it going. Those are the kind of things that people are looking at, because each of these plants are merchant plants, so they don't have to feed into the PJM grid. The other thing that we need to keep that I guess I missed mentioning, we are the #1 county in the state for electric generation. I think we're about 5.6 gigawatts. For translation into English that we can understand, that's 5.6 million houses worth of electric. But when we're, I think, the 3rd highest county in the country as far as power generation. And that doesn't include or wouldn't include 3 Mile Island, because technically that's in Lancaster County. So, I mean, we've got a lot of power generation here. But the thing is, power generation and the PJM moves at the speed of infrastructure. Business moves at the speed of business. And those two are not compatible. And so they're making the moves in the ways that they can, but they can't force things. I can tell you, there was a warehouse in York County. Well, actually, I'll tell you 2 stories on it. There was a warehouse in York County that almost did, and it was next to a substation. They almost did on-site power generation because the substation wasn't going to be able to serve it. And it was literally adjoining it. Or another example of it, that Amazon warehouse that you see on 83, that's the last mile facility up there. I believe they are spending over $1 million a month on additional power generation because the grid can't handle it yet. So they are paying $1 million a month to bridge themselves to when the power grid can get it there. People don't understand how much of a strain our power grid is on. We talk in our office as far as younger agents. If you walk into a building and you see it and your switchgear says 4,000 amps of 483 phase, don't believe it unless they're currently using it. Call the utility up, because they'll tell you, it may say it can serve 4,000 amps, but I can't get 4,000 amps to the building. So those are the things that we need to understand. Yep.
Really nice presentation. Question in the office setting. You mentioned vacancy rates very low in office, but I think everyone can attest, their organization might have leases in place, but when you look in an office, there's a quarter or half of the people who are still coming to the office. So when those lease terms end, what's the projection or your best interpretation of how that vacancy rate changes as terms end and re-upping negotiations begin? Do you see that vacancy rate increasing?
It might increase some, but we're seeing more back to office, even if it's underutilized just because people aren't in 5 days a week, but typically it's not working entirely remote. Now, people are looking more at hoteling aspects and things like that. I mean, honestly, we consulted with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the South Central Pennsylvania region and helped the Commonwealth basically get out of the Strawberry Square buildings, the towers and such, because we looked at the square footage and their utilization. And they also occupied an average of 261 square feet per person, even if they were all in the office. Our office is at 150. So saving the Commonwealth, I think, about $150 million over the next 10 years. So there's some aspect of that happening, but, and we're seeing leases being smaller. So yeah, I maybe was in a 10,000 square foot space and I'm looking at 7,500 and that kind of thing. And that's some of where I think the repurposing aspect, is like these buildings, it's like, is it gonna stay? Yes, I showed an industrial example as far as being repurposed to apartments. We're going to see more and more. I mean, the building on the square, the old Bears department store, if you go way back, or the county or city building, that's all apartments now, where it had been offices and was originally retail. It's in its 3rd type of use. So we're going to see more of that happening. Yep. Go. You get.
In the industrial sector, can you give us a sense of that 94 million square feet? How much of that is transshipment or distribution of products not made here versus industrial where products are being made here and the warehousing directly related to raw materials or finished goods and the direct production of goods? How, in your mind, do you differentiate between manufacturing that's actually production related versus industrial that is really just transshipment?
Yeah, I don't know if we've got that well broken down, to be honest with you. I mean, we could probably, I'd have to ask Drew, who's our guru of our system, to see what we could break down. I mean, I can tell you by municipality, break it down, the ways we can slice it and dice it. But that piece, we probably don't. I mean, we could probably do it by class of building, because that would start to help narrow that down a little bit. But then, like, you've got Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks is in 2 million square feet in York County. I mean, it's because of their roasting facility, and it's all supporting of their roasting facility. But the roasting facility, which isn't just roasting in that building, is a 400,000 square foot building. So, there's 2 million square feet. That's, maybe 400,000 of its production. Or you got the Harleys of the world and such. And Syncreon and the various people that are supplying Harley. That'd be a lot harder to parse out. And I'd say that we don't really have good detail on that, but a good portion of it is warehouse. It is. I mean, we're in a sweet spot for warehousing, and manufacturers are having a hard time getting employees. Yeah.
Nice presentation, Kevin.
Thanks, Frank.
I have a south of the Mason-Dixon line question for you.
Is that allowed?
Well, there stereotypically are a lot of people who commute from York County south to the greater Baltimore area, for all kinds of employment, if it's defense, healthcare, private sector, et cetera. And they live in York County and they commute to the greater Baltimore or even greater DC area. I've also experienced personally over the last, I'll say 5 years or since COVID, a lot of people, particularly I've noticed in healthcare in York County, live south of the Mason-Dixon line, in the greater Baltimore region, and work in York. So it's sort of seems like it's going both ways. I want to hear your opinion. And you didn't talk much about healthcare, the healthcare industry. I want to hear your comments on those questions.
Yeah, that's always an interesting one. I mean, when the Stewarts originally tried to develop Stonebridge Business Park, some of the idea was this was going to be a Hunt Valley North and we'd be able to pull people up. If you remember my comment about finding out where the executives live, that's it. So much of the time, they don't want the commute. They don't care if 30% of their workforce, PH&H, I mean, a portion of their labor force, a decent portion of their labor force already lived in York County. But the executives, literally fought tooth and nail with the parent company, Sendent, and said, if you move to York County, we are leaving. The executives did that. I mean, at one point, because they gave us a target on how much money to save the company, and we met it. But the executives said, you do it, we're leaving. And that's the kind of stuff that you sometimes face. The other thing is, I mean, as you get into this virtual world, it is easier for people to work remotely for a lot of different careers. So they're picking by their lifestyle and quality of life where they want to be. Those are the kind of things that we struggle with, or the cost of living. We've had more struggle getting companies to jump, although I got to tell you, down in Stonebridge, I sold a building from Baltimore Steel in Hopewell Township to Maryland Glass. Okay, for context, so that does happen, but it's not as easy and obvious. There's more of a wall there than you'd expect. Just like the river is a river. Will, did one more question or no? You're calling the shot.
I have a quick question. Kevin, this is great. Thank you. So as a follow-up to PH&H, you talked about the amenities that the company was looking for, but you mentioned the executives. Are companies still looking for amenities for their employees? And if so, what are they?
It's quality of life kind of stuff, as far as, I mean, even a sports complex. Don't get me started on a deal that we lost. But is those kind of things, the executives, I mean, if the executive and decision maker is really his son's really into baseball and wants to have a phenomenal program, so much of those decisions really can get skewed. We had a project when I was with the Alliance for Caterpillar was going to give the Alliance the cat plant. And literally at one point, the guy that we were dealing with, the Caterpillar, said, don't embarrass us with how much money you make on this. We had 2 users who were going to take the building because it's 2 main buildings, like 650,000 square foot buildings. We had a company that was going to take the one. The executive didn't want the drive from Stewartstown to do there. And the other executive was not a local company. And the executive's wife really liked the horse country up in Lebanon. So they built a brand new building up in Lebanon that cost them way more money. Those are two actual examples of projects that we could have had in the cat plant, both manufacturers that we lost because of decisions like that. It's crazy. It blows my mind. All right. I'm not going anywhere, as well as John Birkland and Reed Gunderson in my office are here. So my day's good. Thanks. Thank you. Oh, I should take my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not me.
Okay, that's it. All right. Thank you, Kevin, and thanks for that little trip down memory lane in my career. I can't believe it's been almost 25 years since I've started my tenure in economic development, but getting to work on some really cool projects with Kevin through his work at Rock has been one of the highlights of my time here in York County. Now Leadership York is, if anybody, my board members are in here. But Kevin, thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. It gave us a lot of meaningful context around what drives development decisions and how York is positioned in the broader market. The candid perspective you offered helps our members better understand the realities behind the headlines. And when you pulled that graphic up of the Canadian population and US population, I had flashbacks of many, many international trade shows where I had that memorized. I could say it in my sleep. Just letting people know how central York County is to our country and the population in general. So as you know, our speaker has signed a book to donate to the Werner Early Learning Child Care Center, along with a bookmark made by Creative York. And someone is just torturing me with Harold and the Purple Crayon. But there's a sticker on here. And I also wanted to say, when I was watching some TV this past weekend, I noticed that it's a movie. So I might not read the book. I might watch the movie instead. Stay tuned. I do read, Brian. All right. Next week, we're going to hear from Dr. James L. Norrie, Professor of Strategy Law and Cybersecurity Management at York College of Pennsylvania. He is also the founder and CEO of CyberCon IQ, a cybersecurity firm based in York, PA. He has authored 6 books, including his latest, Beyond the Code, The Promise, Peril, and Possibility of AI for All Humanity. He is a frequent media commentator featured in national outlets, including TV and the New York Times. He will bring his expertise across business, engineering, psychology, and law to discuss the ethical, social, environmental, and economic disruptions and opportunities posed by AI and other emerging technologies. With that, our meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next week.